make some sense of it all, but I can see it makes no sense at all. Is it cool to go to sleep on the floor? 'Cause I don't think that I can take anymore. Clowns to the left of me, jokers to the right. Here I am, stuck in the middle with you.
Good morning, everyone. Lots going on as usual. Today is Saturday, January 3rd, 2026, and it is off with a bang. Holy cow. Maduro has been arrested by U.S. troops in partnership, apparently, with the Venezuelan military, and they're making announcements, and apparently there's going to be a press conference this morning at 11 o'clock, and it's wild and crazy. There are people in the U.S. who are saying this is illegal. There are people in Canada who are saying he can't do this kind of stuff, and all sorts of crazy stuff, but it's done now, and we've got all sorts of stuff to look at, so we'll look at the Maduro thing. We'll start there. Silver's breaking through, but not in the paper markets. The paper markets are being manipulated, and they have been manipulated, and as a matter of public record, there have been banks that have had to pay fines because of manipulated and suppressing the prices of precious metals like gold and silver and others. And so that's interesting in the context, because apparently silver is now trading in the open market, excuse me, for $130 an ounce. So that's massive. That's absolutely unbelievable. And from $30, 35, 25, 35 bucks to $130, maybe, that's a meteoric rise. It's incredible to watch, and I don't have enough silver for that, not even close. Iran is being framed as an economic protest, but that's not the case, and so it's interesting, the dishonest framing. I want to show that to you. Russia presents proof of a plot to kill Putin by Zelensky with the drones, and the coalition of the willing meet in Kiev, and I want to tell you the shape of what I think we're seeing here. The people who are on the side of sanity seem to be Trump, who's trying to negotiate peace, and Russia, who seems to be actually genuinely trying to negotiate peace. And the bad actors seem to be all of the coalition of the willing, the people who are like Boris Johnson, all of the people who are charged with leading the G7 and the West broadly want a big war with Russia. And it seems like everything they're doing is poking their eye in the peace process. And I think that that's something to note. I don't think that they're doing what they say they're doing, looking for peace and looking for off-ramps and looking for a way to end this thing. It seems like what they're trying to do is lock us into a war that is inescapable no matter what Donald Trump does. And that's not their job. So it's super duper weird. So there's lots going on. What is the impact of what Trump is doing in Venezuela on George Soros? What is the impact of what Trump's doing in Venezuela on Iran? What's the impact of what Trump's doing in Venezuela on Canada? Because Canada is, like Venezuela, a country that uses its proximity and access to the United States to be a airlock, a stopping ground, a way station on the way to the United States for lots of international drug criminals. I've heard rumors, and I mean, I'm just a dude in my garage. I don't hear things. People email me sometimes, but like more often than not, I'm just, surfing the public web and stuff. But I have heard that there are, I lost my train of thought. There's all sorts of, no, I lost my train of thought. There's lots to get to. Let's get to it first. Venezuela. Venezuela is the biggest deal in the world. And waking up this morning, I had multiple emails saying, holy cow, Trump's kicking it off. Venezuela's going like hot. This is nuts. And yeah. Oh, Canada. I've heard there's lots of people, and again, I'm just some guy in my garage, but I've heard there's lots and lots of drugs coming through Mexico and China, and they've paired up using Vancouver as their port of entry. So that's what I was trying to say. Now I remember. But yeah, and Venezuela, holy smokes, so lots to get to. Let's get to it first. Sprinter says Empire Strikes Back, breaking down Trump's attack on Venezuela. Based on the available information at this moment, the United States has successfully conducted an air blitzkrieg in Venezuela and kidnapped President Nicolas Maduro. Have they kidnapped him? Yes? Okay. AJ says Venezuela's Nicolas Maduro was thinking he'd played President Trump like Biden for his entire presidency. Happy New Year, Maduro. Another corrupt regime going down. Stop the drug shipments into the United States. Get your country in order, and you don't face these consequences. what does that mean for Canada? And like genuinely, what does that mean for Canada? If I know that there's like lots of drug labs and our fentanyl czar hasn't done anything, and every time a drug lab gets crushed in Canada, 5 more operate with the same equipment in different places, and the people who are arrested are let out on bail. Like, if I know that, Trump knows that, and if Trump's doing this to Venezuela, I'm not expecting boats to get blown up. I'm expecting some economic force, as Trump said. So, but maybe the things have changed. I'm not sure. Unfortunately for Maduro, he's starting to find out that Trump means what he says. So yeah, Trump is doing this. He is full steam ahead, and we'll see where it goes. Tom Quiggin says the government of Chavez and Maduro in Venezuela were so miserable that much of the population just left. An estimated 8 million Venezuelans, approximately 27% of the population, have fled the country since Chavez took power in 1999, with the exodus accelerating dramatically after 2015. Venezuela was prosperous until in 1998 when the socialists took over. Now it is poverty-stricken, destroyed from within. I remember looking at pictures of Venezuela. A friend of mine, I think, was going to a hotel in Venezuela, like maybe an all-inclusive, but just, on vacation. I was working in 2002 or 2003. The socialists took over in 1998, but it took time for things to get really bad. And people were still visiting, and Venezuela was a very successful South American country at the time. And so it's very interesting to remember that, and then to what Venezuela has become. They're eating zoo animals, or they were eating zoo animals, while the regime was getting fat on oil sales to China. Tracy says, update, President Trump ordered airstrikes on facilities all throughout Venezuela, completely overwhelming the country within minutes. 0 reports of return fire at this point. Total shock and awe. No reports of U.S. troops injured. So they were not aware that this could even happen. They did not even have a response plan tabled. Nothing happened. They just got destroyed. Nothing happened. Lord Bibu says, first U.S. attack on Venezuela was massive. La Corlada disabled and bombed. Mountain barracks in Cadia Lamar disabled and bombed. Federal Legislative Palace in Caracas bombed. Fort Tiuna bombed. Airport in El Hatillo attacked. I'm getting that wrong. Hatiello. F-16 Base 3 in another place attacked. Caracas Private Airport in Charavel bombed and disabled. Defense plan activated in Miraflores. Attack of Caracas, Santa Monica, Fort Tinua, Los Ticos, 23 and Enro de Enro. All of southern Caracas without power. Attacks in central Caracas. Higaturi military helicopter base disabled and bombed. Sorry about all the names, because I probably slaughtered every single one of them. So if I accidentally got one right, you're welcome. Nick says, total mayhem in the streets of Caracas, Venezuela, after President Trump orders strikes on Venezuelan military sites. This operation just started about an hour ago, and the country is already on their knees. Holy crap. So yes, overwhelm them, says Trump. Go do what I've told you to do. And they did. And I think this is a real picture. I don't think this is AI, but it could be AI. So take it with a grain of salt as you do. Catturd says, good morning, X. This is U.S. Special Forces or DEA. I'm not sure who the military group that got them, or the police group that got him and his wife. But it is a picture of Maduro seemingly in handcuffs being walked out by two military guys and a couple of guys from an airplane. So wild and crazy times. 2026 is lit. Rev says, zero media leaks. Successful strikes completely level primary airbase. Bomb the corpse of Hugo Chavez just for fun. Capture Maduro like Batman or something. So, and that's Salieri from Mozart, right? From what was that movie? What was the movie called? I can't remember what the movie was called. It was the story of Mozart, where he just laughs, right? And what is it? Where is it? Unbelievable.
It's set.
I had to, as soon as I saw the GIF, I had to make that laugh. I can't remember the name of the movie. I'll have to look it up when I'm playing a movie or playing a video on here. Clint says, wow, Trump launched the attack just hours after a Chinese delegation landed in Venezuela. The U.S. then captured and extracted Maduro, the guy they came to meet. This was never about drugs or fentanyl. This was clearly a message to China. Is China scheduled to come visit Mark Carney anytime soon? No? Wouldn't that be interesting? Toronto is on its knees. Matt Couch says, he didn't declare war, you dipshit. So Representative Melanie Stansbury says, the White House is confirming U.S. military operations in Venezuela tonight. Let us be clear. These strikes are illegal. The president does not have the authority to declare war or undertake large-scale military operations without Congress. Congress must act to rein him in immediately. And Matt says he didn't declare war. This was a military operation. He's the commander-in-chief of our military. He also has 48 hours to inform you per our laws and constitution. Some of you liberal dorks should try reading it. The War Powers Resolution of 1973. So there you go. You have time to be informed, and Trump is on the horn on the Truth Social. And Nancy says, breaking news, President Trump just put out a statement regarding the attacks on Venezuela and the capture of its president, Nicolas Maduro. And Trump says the United States of America has successfully carried out a large-scale strike against Venezuela and its leader, President Nicolas Maduro, who's been, along with his wife, captured and flown out of the country. This operation was done in conjunction with U.S. law enforcement. Details to follow. There will be a news conference today at 11 a.m. at Mar-a-Lago. Thank you for your attention to this matter. So I'll bring you whatever is important from the news conference tomorrow. We'll see what happens. Dr. Eli, or the news conference is happening in an hour and 15 minutes from now. So when it happens, we'll see. I'll check it out. Dr. Eli says, Trump offered Maduro to leave nicely. Maduro refused, so he left not so nicely. Next, Trump offers Khamenei to leave nicely. What does this mean for Iran? Very interesting. Sprinter Press is responding to Marco Rubio, and they say U.S. Secretary of State Marco Rubio just reposted his own words from July 2025. Maduro is not the president of Venezuela, and his regime is not the legitimate government. Now Maduro has been captured. So Maduro is not the president of Venezuela. His regime is not the legitimate government. Maduro is the head of the Cartel de los Soles, a narco-terror organization which has taken possession of a country, and he is under indictment for pushing drugs into the United States. So he is a criminal who's the head of this drug cartel, and he's under arrest by the United States for pushing drugs into the United States on behalf of his drug cartel, which took over a country. So is that a legitimate reason to do what Trump has done? I don't know. The international players are going to weigh in. A lot of people are going to say no. Some people are going to say yes. It's done now. And so what's next? This guy says Nicolas Maduro negotiated his departure with Washington several weeks ago. And this is rumor, but I've seen a bunch of people post this, so I just wanted to include it. Although geeks and sheep talk about a special operation, this has been nothing more than a well-prepared performance with the support of members of the Venezuelan army itself. The Caracas government was in an unsustainable situation, rife with corruption and inefficiency, which had led millions of people to leave the country in recent years. The army will likely take control of the country and continue the negotiations that have been taking place in recent months on a political transition that will allow a U.S. puppet to be installed in Venezuela. I'll show you the puppet in a minute. She's the Nobel Prize winning opposition leader at this point, but she's the successor to Guaido. Guaido was supported by Chrystia Freeland, Justin Trudeau, and the G7. I think it was Boris who was in charge at the time, Macron. Everybody was like, oh, we've got to push Guaido in here. And I talked about it, and I was like, I don't trust this Guaido guy if he's being pushed by these people. I trust this woman less, by the way. The situation for the Venezuelan people who are not sovereign will remain the same, although they have been freed from populist corruption. They will now return to embracing the oligarch landowners of the 1990s. Tanto Tan, I don't know what that says. So that's an interesting. You'll have an interim government for a period of time, and then you'll have a U.S. puppet or a friendly U.S. person placed by the U.S. because they freed them. And that's my concern if somebody comes in and, quote, frees your country. You trade one tyrant for another. So we'll see. Mr. Sunshine Baby says Venezuela's defense minister wishes to declare war with the United States. He calls for an anti-imperialist and liberation war. So I don't know. There's 5 minutes. He's speaking in Spanish, I believe. So I'm just going to carry on, but that's what's going on there. Defiant L's says, this is how the people of Venezuela celebrated after Nicolas Maduro is detained, and a picture of him is being torn down. So I guess there's lots of pictures of dictators around in dictator places. They're being torn down in Venezuela. And Joey says, I'm with some Cubans right now, and they're crying tears of joy. Venezuelans are celebrating all over the globe, too. If anyone thinks this military operation was a bad idea, you have no idea how many votes were just gained for the midterms. Trump is now the absolute hero of Latin Americas. So there you go. All the people who moved into the southern United States love Trump because he freed their home countries. Avi says Venezuelans celebrate in the streets while commies and woke right losers Woke right doesn't exist, and the fact that he uses it is ridiculous. In the West, cry on social media. People like Wyatt Claypool are talking about how Trump can't do this, and it's funny. It's funny. Here is who they're going to parachute into power. Lena says, guess who the opposition leader who they'll put in power? Venezuela opposition leader praises Israel's fight against Iran and Hamas. I'm pretty sure Israel created Hamas and they pay them through Qatar. There's video of Bibi talking about it. Like video, lots of video. Like not just a little bit of video, lots of video. Disclosed TV. On a World Economic Forum stage, the new puppet of Venezuela talks about how great Building Back Better is. Nobel Peace Prize winner and opposition leader Maria Corina Machado. We are ready to take over government in Venezuela. So, right? Today's one of those bad Trump story days. I mean, I don't necessarily disagree with taking out Maduro. I do disagree with a regime change where you put in your own puppet. If Maduro was taken out, the military's put in as an interim, and they have a free and open election, and they elect Speedy Gonzalez. Cool, man, cool. And I mean, like whoever, like a Venezuelan dude who is Speedy Gonzalez, of course, is the Looney Tune, but somebody, and he's Mexican, I think, but somebody who is local, somebody who is focused on their own citizens in Venezuela. Sure, if you want to trade. I'm not saying you can't trade your oil. Like trade your oil with whoever you want, but if they do that, that would have more legitimacy than parachuting in Nobel Prize winning Israeli acolyte. Like that's the part that bothers me. Not the removal of Maduro, really, because it did seem like he was a bad guy, right? It seemed like he was a bad guy. I didn't really agree with the removal of Saddam Hussein because it's none of your business. But with Maduro, if he's running a drug cartel that's running drugs into your country using Venezuela as his own piggy bank, like that's your business, right? Iraq wasn't doing that. So like, I don't know, man. There's justification here, whether you agree with it or not. I think that there is justification here. An argument could be made, and so in one that couldn't be made with Iraq. So it's one of those things where there's going to be people who like it and people who don't. This guy makes a point that I wish that Trump would focus on arresting Tim Walz, man. What the heck? What? Fraud out the wazoo? And it's fine. It's fine. Let's get Maduro, right? Like, I don't know, man. Priorities here. Carl says he's responding to Attorney General Pam Bondi saying Nicolas Maduro and his wife have been indicted in the Southern District of New York. Nicolas Maduro has been charged with narco-terrorism, conspiracy, cocaine importation, conspiracy, possession of machine guns and destructive devices, conspiracy to possess machine guns, destructive devices against the United States. They will soon face the full wrath of the American justice system on U.S. soil and American courts. On behalf of the entire U.S. Department of Justice, I would like to thank President Trump for having the courage to demand accountability on behalf of the American people. Huge thank you, blah, 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 blah. No Epstein list, right? Well, we'll just overlook that for now. But this guy says, we captured and are putting on trial a dictator from Venezuela. Can you please indict someone in America for politically targeting our side, please? It's ahead of the snake, though, right? I don't know. At some point, you have to start arresting people. At some point, you have to actually show your hand. If nothing happens and we're at the end of the Trump presidency, man, that's going to be unfortunate, right? Yowza. Here is just a little bit of Iran news. What does this mean for Iran a little bit? And Barbara says, now is the time for Western countries to prepare for the forced exodus of IRGC cells within them. Looking at you, Mark Carney, you haven't said a word since the protests began in Iran, yet Canada has a serious Iranian Revolutionary Guard problem. You should be encouraging the protesters. And 2C says, mainstream media keeps mislabeling the uprising in Iran as economic protests. That framing is false and dangerously incomplete. What's unfolding across Iran is an uprising against the Islamic regime itself. The message from the streets is clear. This is a rejection of the Islamic occupation and a demand for national restoration under the Crown Prince. And they say his name, but I'm just going to get it wrong. So, and really, in Canada, we shouldn't have a say in what's going on in Iran, but it's interesting that other world leaders are recognizing what's happening and putting their 2 cents in. a little bit anyway. And in Canada, Melissa says, if you're wondering why Mark Carney has not commented on the situation in Iran, it's most likely because Canada has many Iranian officials living inside of Canada. Yes, this is true, and it's a cause for concern. So there's a whole bunch of clipped articles here. Canada's attempt to deport Iranian regime members fails again. Iranian regime officials are entering Canada with alarming ease. Senior Iranian regime officials found living in Canada raise fears among Iranian dissidents. I mean, maybe the guys who took over Iran think, well, maybe we'll just go to Canada and we'll take over Canada. Those Canadians seem like puff cakes, right? Like we're not putting up much of a resistance. We'll yell at each other before we yell at our politicians. And if we yell at our politicians, the politicians will start sucking their thumb and crying victim and say, oh, we have to take away their free speech because they're saying mean words. Oh. Rise of Alberta says, independence update. Elections Alberta has officially issued the Citizens Initiative petition to the Alberta Prosperity Project for the Alberta Independence Referendum. Signature collection runs from January 3rd to May 2nd, 2026. 177,732 valid signatures are required. We are live. I don't have a link. I don't think this is the link. This is just a link to the same tweet. So I don't have a link to the actual thing. We're live. So when I find the link, I'll show you. Pretty wild. I'm not sure that the Alberta independence is going to go through smoothly. I feel strongly that they're going to do everything they can. And by they, I mean the federal government of Canada, the provincial government of Alberta, the UCP party, because the UCP party has commitments just like the CPC party has. And if you want to know what those commitments are, I mean, Danielle Smith makes it very clear. So they have vested interest in keeping things the way they are. They don't want to see changes. And there's also lots of rich people who rely on money from government, and, their businesses have contracts with government. And this would be a material change, and, we're not sure how it'll go. So we'd rather just keep things the way they are and use the leverage that you're creating with this separation threat to our advantage, like Quebec does. They don't actually want to separate. They want to use it as a political tool. And that's not going to work because you're getting screwed. Like, you're getting just so screwed. Billions and billions and billions of dollars a year, right? Like, you get so screwed. You can't fix it. You can't fix it with a diplomatic process, because without that money, Canada can't function. And by that, I mean Quebec won't get the equalization money. And so that'll be the same thing in the House of Commons as Canada can't function. So unbelievable stuff. But here we sit. With that, I've got to say goodbye to the stream. I was out last night with some family, and so I'm sorry I'm a little absent-minded today. We were out late, and I had one more drink than I usually have, and I used to drink a lot more than I do now, and so it's knocking me off my game this morning, I guess. Anyway, if you want the whole show, head over to CanadaPoly.com. If not, that's okay. I'll be around tomorrow, and I'm sure I'll be much better. And I think we're going to do our kitchen table talk tomorrow, so I'll be sending out the emails. If you want to join the kitchen table talk, all you have to do is go to CanadaPoly.com and join the email list. That's where I send